Hello and welcome to Desert Island, a Doctor Who podcast in which people from the Doctor Who world take their 8 chosen Doctor Who episodes to a desert island. Joining us this week is the Torchwood, Sarah Jane Adventures and Doctor Who writer, Joe Lidster.
Hello, how are you?
I'm well.
I'm well as well.
I think you are our first guest who has his own Wikipedia page.
Oh, right. The first time I went on Wikipedia, and I saw some of the other, at that point I was just doing Big Finish, and I saw some of the Big Finish writers had pages on there, and I thought, I wonder if someone's done one for me. And I went on there, and I found I wasn't on Wikipedia. I had been on Wikipedia, but I'd been deleted as not notable enough. So, there's a kick in the teeth.
Yeah.
But yes, no, I have one. It's lovely.
So, just in case anyone, they should, but if they don't know which episodes you've written, would you mind saying a bit about that?
Yeah, well, I did loads of Big Finish over the years for their Doctor Who range, and then Benny Summerfield and Unit and Sapphire and Steel and the Tomorrow People and probably others I can't remember. And then I did an episode for Series 2 of Torchwood called A Day in the Death, and then 3 stories of the Sarah Jane Adventures, which were... I can't remember what the first one's called. It's one about Clyde's dad. Mark of the Berserker, and then the Mad Woman in the Attic, and then the Nightmare Man. And then I've done audios for Torchwood as well, and lots of other stuff not related to Doctor Who. So it's been good.
All very fine stories, I might add.
Oh, thank you.
So, might as well get into your list now.
Yeah.
And your first choice is, you start from the very beginning of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And it is An Unearthly Child.
So that when we go out of that door, we won't be in a junkyard in London, in England, in the year 1963.
That is quite correct.
I love it. Well, I mean, I think it's a brilliant, amazing start to the series. I think the first episode, everybody always raves about the first episode, and quite right. It's just a genius bit of telly, really. It's such an amazing start to a series. It's so clever. It's very atmospheric. It's very simple. I like the fact that it doesn't do... From having worked in telly myself, and you see things, when you get executive producers giving notes and stuff, I can't imagine so is it a kids show or a family show? But it's ostensibly a kids show. I can't imagine a kids show these days starting with having 2 teachers as the hero, and I think that's just a brilliant idea for a way to start a series for a kids show. It's because it just makes it's like your mum and dad, Ian and Barbara, a bit like your mum and dad being caught up in an adventure, which I just think is really cool. But yeah, I think that first episode it's just amazing. The 4 main characters are so brilliant, but then I think the other 3 episodes get overlooked a bit, and I think they're terrifying. I can't imagine what it must have been like to watch those at the time. I think that cave world, the sort of prehistoric Earth, is possibly more alien than anything else Doctor Who has ever done. There's something so alien about it, so terrifying, and I think it's so clever to do to show like how this is how time travelers work. It has taken them to a complete lack of civilization. So it's not gone to an alien world with its own rules or whatever. It's not gone to the future. It's gone to a time that it's such a contrast to 1963, to their world of schools and junkyards and things like that, and talking about pop music. So, I just think it really sums up the brilliance of Doctor Who, where episode 1 you have people talking about pop music and maths and homework at school, and then in episodes 2, 3 and 4 you have people beating each other to death with rocks and desperate to find fire. And I just think I think it's so underrated what those first 3 episodes do. And I just think they look so moody and terrifying. And I think at the time, sort of on the smaller TV sets on, sort of November, December, cold evenings, that just must have looked like a horror movie for those next 3 episodes. So that's why I just think it's a brilliant piece of writing, acting. I think the 4 of them, Ian, Barbara, Susan and the Doctor, are just 4 of the best characters to have ever been on TV, and to have that combination is just brilliant.
When you said about like people having their heads bashed in with rocks, this is one where even the Doctor tries to bash someone's head in with a rock. It's it highlights how very different the Doctor is then than he is now.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's not the hero in that show. He's the baddie. He kidnaps our heroes, and we just don't know anything about him. And I just think that's brilliant. And I think it not only makes him interesting, having Ian and Barbara. I think it's Ian, isn't it, who stops it particularly. Having Ian stop him is just very clever, because you're highlighting their differences. And I mean I love their whole journey. I love Edge of Destruction, and the Doctor and Barbara at the end of Edge of Destruction is where they're talking about the journey that they've gone on those 3 stories, and how much they've had to come together. I just think those first 3 stories are amazing for that. The character work is just astonishing. I just love the relationship between Barbara and the First Doctor. It's a real sort of earning respect for each other. And then they link arms at the end of Edge of Destruction and go out to explore together, and it makes me cry every time I watch it. That last few minutes of Edge of Destruction, I just think it's so beautiful, and it all starts in An Unearthly Child. That absolute distrust and lack of knowledge, and their teachers. As a kid watching it, teachers know everything. Teachers are boring and they know everything, and we don't think teachers have home lives. They just are there to make our lives hell, and they know everything. And to have a series that starts with these 2 prim and proper civilized teachers being absolute victims and absolutely human, and us then seeing the human side, I just think it's genius. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I've recently, I did my own sort of marathon of, not a full marathon, I just watched one story from each Doctor going up to the 50th anniversary.
Oh, right.
And I'd seen the first episode before, but I hadn't actually seen the rest. And my first impressions was, I think going off, because I'd seen so many other eras up to it, was a bit slower, and
yes,
there's not as much there as perhaps in the first episode of this story, but that's the way TV was made back then.
Yeah,
it's not as high action, but it's a product of its time. But there's still the barren landscape when you see a police box on that. Still is an evocative image even now.
Yes, oh totally. And I think, and we talk about it being a product of its time and all that, but then you look at it, you go, that first episode has flashbacks in. It's got people being inside and outside. It's told over different days and stuff, and it's very brave, technically very brave of the things they do, and you sort of imagine how it was filmed. These weren't, the flashbacks weren't pre-filmed and things like that. It was people having to record voiceovers and run from set to set, and now run and go and be in the car, and I just think it's so brilliant. Yeah, I just love it, and I think yes, it is dated and it is slow, but I think actually I think you could show, especially that first episode, to kids today, and you just have to get them past the fact it's black and white, and they'll be fine, because I just think it's so scary and clever and funny as well. It's very human, which is lovely.
What do you think of Susan?
she's bonkers, which is brilliant. She's so alien and weird, and then she's just, I don't know. There's something about her in the TARDIS when they get into the TARDIS, and she's so like torn between her two worlds, which I think really works nicely. She wants to be human, and so she tries to protect Ian and Barbara and so on. But then she is this unearthly child, which is again it's a brilliant title. It's such a brilliant title. So yeah, no, I think she's great. Really sort of interesting, and yeah, there's something about Carol Ann Ford's performance. I think there is something absolutely alien about her, but also absolutely there's a sweetness to her, a sort of naivety to her, which you sort of want to protect her, and see why Ian and Barbara want to protect her, which I just think is lovely.
Well, moving from one story that features time travel and introduces us to the Doctor, to another story which introduces us to the Doctor's people.
You mustn't call them in, or it will be the end of us. They'll show no mercy. You stop the fighting!
I adore the War Games. I first watched it as a kid when it came out on VHS. I don't suppose you even know what VHS is, do you? I feel very old. It came out on VHS, and I sat there and watched it with a mate, and I was just blown away by it. I think it is. It might be the best Doctor Who story ever made. It's so gorgeous. It looks amazing. I mean, it just absolutely every era they go to looks amazing. But again, very dark and atmospheric. The trenches, the stuff in the sort of officers' trenches, and then in the is it chateau that they're in, and things like that, just look amazing. And you sort of go, people talk about old Doctor Who having wobbly sets and stuff, and if you showed them the War Games, I mean, if that had colour, I think the War Games looks exactly how it would look like if it was made today, if it was in colour. I literally think, it looks so well directed.
We take it for granted nowadays, don't we?
And you take it for granted, and you sort of think that's multi-camera stuff, and having to build new sets all the time and that. So yeah, I think it's brilliant, and I think it's so exciting, and it's got amazing characters. I think I can't remember, is it Carstairs and Lady Jennifer? They meet in the early episodes. Are beautiful. They're so fun and so sympathetic. I think you really care about them. They're so well performed and written. And I think that's the same with all the characters in it. And I think it's the most epic story Doctor Who has ever done, old series or new series. I love how it builds up. So they're in a war, and then they find out that person's involved, and then they meet that person's boss and that person's boss, and someone's got a thing like a TARDIS. And I just think it must have been amazing to watch and not know what was going on. I just think it's an absolutely... And even the futuristic stuff, which is sometimes where Doctor Who falls down slightly, the alien and futuristic design, because it's sort of very pop art, and that it looks just gorgeous, and I think it looks proper alien and proper weird, and actually just really cool. I adore it. And then I think the ending is the saddest ending there's ever been to a Doctor Who story ever, because I think Jamie and Zoe, possibly more than any other companions, there's something very childish about them. Childlike, not childish, childlike. And the second Doctor can be quite childlike, although he's also got his manipulative side and that. And the three of them are just possibly the three nicest people to have ever travelled in time and space, because they're so different from each other, but they're best friends, and they just like messing about and helping people when they can. But you sort of get the impression that they're just having the best time of their lives. And the idea that they would lose their memories, Jamie won't even remember Zoe. He will never, he doesn't remember her. I just think is heartbreaking, and their performances in their final goodbye scenes. All three of them just really knock it out of the park. It's just amazing.
Yeah, the exit for Jamie and Zoe's very similar to what Russell T Davies did for Donna.
Yeah, it's a very
lose the memory, and it works well for those particular characters because they've sort of grown so much through knowing the Doctor.
Yeah, and there's something simple but brilliant about Jamie and Zoe because they're so different. They are pretty much literally polar opposites. She's this brain, and he's brawn, and she's from the future, and he's from the past. She's female, he's male. You know, she knows everything, he knows nothing, but he actually has much more life experience than she does because she's a very closed life. And I just think there's something gorgeous about their relationship, and
entirely agree.
It's all taken away from them. I just think it's brilliant. It's so heartbreaking.
Because Troughton's my favourite Doctor, and I think the Jamie, Zoe, and Second Doctor team is one of my, if not my favourite team.
Yeah.
I like the ones where it's three people.
Yeah, I think you've got
sort
some
of
interesting,
like with Amy and Rory or something like that.
Yeah, I think you've got interesting sort of things to explore when it's three. You've got a nice balance of, I think 4 is too many. You know, much as I love Tegan, Nish and Adric, having 4 people in the TARDIS is too many. And 1 works brilliantly, obviously. But yeah, I think there's something about having 3. It just allows you to have little different relationships between them. It allows people to have conversation. It allows the companions to have conversations about the Doctor. Which is nice, you know, because you don't really have that when there's just one. You know, they can only talk to strangers. So yeah, no, I think and I just think there's something about those 3 actors and those 3 characters that's just gorgeous.
This one is 10 parts, which can put people off because it's one of the longest. So
to me, because it moves on all the time, it doesn't drag in the slightest. I think there are 4-parters, there's probably 3-parters out there, maybe even 2-parters that drag more than the War Games. I think because it's so pacey, it's like an action movie at times. It's always, you know, people are always moving about and betraying each other or being caught out and things, and I just think, you know, it's so fast. That's again what I mean. I think it's a very modern story because it's always constantly on the move. I don't want to watch it again. It's just maybe I just want to actually put the War Games on now and watch it because I just love it.
When I watched it, I did watch it all in one go on a Sunday afternoon, which was pretty intense. But like, I don't think I could have managed that if it was a lesser story. I could never have watched a 10-part story. I mean, everyone says teenagers have short attention spans and stuff, so I don't think I could have watched a 10-part story if it had been hadn't been as engaging as the War Games.
Yes, I don't think that's it. I mean, it is. I think it absolutely fits being 10 episodes because it moves about so much and because it's got so many layers of discovering who's behind things and who's behind that and who's behind those, and then you get the Warlord and the War Chief, and you know, there's so much going on. I think it absolutely needs to be 10 episodes. It's an epic. It's like a mini-series. It's like Doctor Who, the mini-series. You know, I just think it works brilliantly.
Your next choice is also a story which features the Time Lords quite heavily. It's set on Gallifrey, and it's an anniversary story, and it is the 5 Doctors. Yeah.
Yay!
Ah, there you are at last, my dear fellow. What kept you?
What kept me? Of all the confounded arrogance.
Never mind. You can tell me later.
Yeah, no, I love the 5 Doctors. I think the 5 Doctors, it was one of the first stories I watched on video because it was a great way to sort of meet all the old Doctors and companions. I can pretty much quote it word for word and sing the incidental music and do all the inflections that all the actors do. I know that story very, very well, and it's got so many. I think it's an absolutely brilliant script because I think that gets overlooked. But I think you look at what Terence had to do, and every Doctor gets his moment, every companion gets their moment. It's actually a big fun adventure. It doesn't get caught up in trying to be, in being this there's so much it has to do, but it doesn't get caught up in it. It also remembers to tell a brilliant story. I think it's the story for me, that shows just what a brilliant writer Terrance Dicks is. I couldn't write the Five Doctors. I would not know where to begin with that shopping list. I could try, and then I can guarantee I wouldn't write anything as nearly exciting and clever as what he does. I just think it's just a big fun adventure, and it's gorgeous, and it's brilliant. It's very difficult to talk about because I just love it so much. I just think it's I love the Raston Warrior robot. I love the Mad Time Lords when they just sit there chatting. I love that Sarah Jane Smith strips gradually throughout the episode. In each of her scenes, she loses the handbag when she flies into the Black Triangle. And that's my favourite thing. I think my favourite thing in the world is the novelisation of the Five Doctors, which has Sarah Jane waiting for the bus because her car's in dock, so that's why she can't take K9, just leave him behind. So she gets the bus and she's waiting at the bus stop, and I think it says in the novelisation, something was coming down the road. Was it the bus? And which I just love. I love the idea that she might mistake a Black Triangle for a double-decker bus.
They've changed their vehicles recently.
Yeah.
Why is it now taking us through time rather than just around the town?
No, I love it. I just think it's. I think it's a really fun story. It's really I like the little combinations they put people in. I like the first Doctor and Tegan. It's brilliant. And again, you just say that's the genius of Terrance Dicks to go. Let's put the first Doctor with Tegan. Turlough and Susan. I love Turlough and Susan because Susan's hysterical and Susan's just very lovely. And then you've got Turlough there going, well, yes, we probably are going to die. I love the Master in it. I love Anthony Ainley's Master. I mean, I grew up with him. He was the Master when I was growing up, and I always found him terrifying. But I just think he's so funny in that story. And I love the simplicity of it. It's a game. It's such a nice simple idea, and having the little figures of them, you really sort of it's deceptively simple, I think. And Zoe's wearing a bubble wrap dress, well, which is brilliant. Tegan's dressed as TV interference, and Zoe's wearing bubble wrap. And Liz Shaw shouting "Stop him" is the most terrifying thing there's ever been in Doctor Who. And the first Doctor eating a pineapple.
The kind of anniversary story that they couldn't do for Day of the Doctor because there is too much Doctor Who now, but at that point it's perfect because it's just enough so that you can fit in basically everything about Doctor Who in one special.
Yeah.
And still make it work as a story. Any later than that, it would have just been too much and crazy, and it was a bit crazy even then, but it still works as the charm.
You say it's crazy in that, but I mean, I watched that not knowing who anybody in it was. Because we bought the video and I kind of heard names of all the companions or whatever. But it's so easy to understand.
Exactly. This was my first classic.
And you don't need to know the history. You don't need but you actually sit there and watch it and just go, I want to know more about these people. These people are brilliant. They're such great fun. And it's so good when they're all just standing there. There's something... I think the only other time it's ever been similar is at The Stolen Earth and Journey's End, when you have all the companions back around the TARDIS together. Martha and Jack and Donna and Jackie's there, just obviously the best character ever in Doctor Who. But they're all around. And I think the only other moment like that in Doctor Who is in the Five Doctors when all the companions are stood there chatting in the Death Zone, which is just brilliant.
It's very much an open door story in a way, isn't it? Like you were saying, you watch it and you want to find out more.
Yeah.
About
I just think that's
the show's history.
Yeah, and it's why Terrance is so good. Terrance knows how to write a proper adventure. No matter what's thrown at him, he knows how to write a good adventure. Yeah, no, I love it.
First classic story. I've mentioned this before on the podcast, and I probably will again, seeing as this is a popular one. So, and yeah, I get what you mean about it. Made me want to find out more about each of these doctors. Like, you want to see, I want to see another one with a brigadier. I want to see another one with the third Doctor, the fifth Doctor. And it's sort of, you get to see all the Doctors, but they're written true to themselves, aren't they?
Yeah, and they just work nicely, and and it's not overdone. There's a little bit of fighting and a little bit of comedy, but by not actually having them all together at first, it totally avoids going into sort of dreary Time Lord civilization, or what it's like to meet yourself in a different, it's like they kind of all just bounce off each other and then just get on with it. And it's just fun watching them all work together, around the that thing that's got the writing on it, whatever it's called, next to the tomb. Oh, the tomb. I mean, the people in the tomb is the most, again.
Oh, I thought that was creepy.
Terrifying. You're sitting there going, that's not for kids. That's terrifying. That's people trapped in concrete. And then Baruza joins them. So yeah, no, and again, that's where Terence is so good, because he remembers to put the scary bits in and the funny bits in, and the adventure and the chasey stuff, and it's so clever.
Now, speaking of Time Lords seeking immortality,
there's a phrase that's never been used before.
Your next choice is an overarching storyline. You have said you prefer one particular part of it.
Oh yes.
That centres around the Valeyard, or as I've always known him, the Doctor. And it's Trial of a Time Lord, and your particular favourite part of it is Terror of the Vervoids.
Yeah.
Carrot juice.
I love Terror of the Vervoids. It's the first story. When I first got into Doctor Who, when I met this kid at school who knew all about old Doctor Who, I realised I had a very, very vague memory of the Malice from The Awakening. I remember it giving me nightmares. But the first story I properly remember watching as a kid is Terror of the Vervoids, because I remember watching it with my brother and sister, and my mum was doing the ironing or just going out or something, and there's a moment in it where the Doctor stops the Terror of the Vervoids stops the story that they're watching on the screen. Can anybody tell which Megarian is going to die? Is it Megarian? I always thought they were moon men at the time, but the aliens in it, one of them's going to die or whatever. And it's because one of them didn't switch his translator on. And I remember my mum saying, my mum had seen it and we hadn't. And I was just like, I suddenly had so much respect for my mum and so much respect for Doctor Who, because suddenly it was so clever and just like, wow, how amazing is that? But also I was terrified of the Vervoids. I thought they were absolutely horrific. And actually thinking about it, it's probably a generalisation. I'm not as knowledgeable about the series as I should be, but they seem to be like the first walking around monsters, men in costumes type monsters that they'd been for a while. I don't know. There must have been others, but I can't. I think that's why they really, because suddenly I was getting the Doctor Who that people had in the 70s when it was mummies and Cybermen and things like that. And actually not even the Cybermen, but more the alien ones, the Nimon and the Mandrills and all those people. Suddenly our Doctor Who had monsters rampaging, and also, although I love the Colin Baker era, but I think one thing it suffers from is I totally agree with John Pertwee when he says about the Yeti on the loo in Tooting Bec, and I don't think the Colin Baker era has much of that. It's always underground corridors on alien planets, and it's one of the reasons I love Battlefield, because Battlefield opens set in a garden centre, and suddenly I was going, oh, Doctor Who's in the world I live in. Doctor Who's in the world that I get dragged to on a Sunday when my parents insist we go to a garden centre. And I think Terror of the Vervoids is a bit of that, by being set on what is basically a cross-channel ferry that's going through space. So suddenly people are in hotel rooms, and there's a reception and a bar area and things like that, which, so suddenly it was in they weren't in terror domes or castles or things like that. They were set in a place that actually sort of you got the gist of where it was, and I just thought that was really, really clever. And yeah, I just thought the vervoids were terrifying, and the girl in the sort of sunbed thing who turns around and she's half vervoid, that was terrifying, and the bit in the shower and that, and I just thought it was actually, I mean, Pip and Jane are interesting writers, and their dialogue can certainly be interesting, and they certainly be interesting to them. I think actually there's an element of Terrence to them, though. They know how to tell a good adventure. They know, actually, you want a monster in a tiny cabin on a cross-channel ferry while you're in the shower, or the monster's in the shower, and you want things like that. You want things like, well, can you see which one of those aliens might die? What they did wrong? You want little tricks like that. It's a very sort of, it's deceptively simple, but it's a thing I think some writers can forget to put in Doctor Who. But you want that thing. You want a family sitting there watching it, and you want them terrified by the monsters, and also you want that thing of some people in the family being cleverer than others and working it out, and so people are interacting with it. And it's got Janet, the air stewardess, who is just the best character ever in Doctor Who. She's just an air stewardess, receptionist in Doctor Who, and she sort of bumbles through the story. No, I love it. Love Taylor Voids.
Terra Oliver Time Lord for the first time fairly recently, and it surprised me how good a lot of the stories were, because I hadn't heard good things about it. And I think that the trial arc, the scenes in the courtroom, are what let the stories down. I don't think any of the stories are bad on their own. I think they're very good.
It's that thing when you look back at it and you can sort of go, it was the wrong thing to do. Doctor Who needed to get back to basics. Doctor Who needed to be adventure stories, individual. So it's totally the wrong thing to do. But I watched it at the time as a kid, and I loved it. And we were terrified by it, and we loved the trial stuff because it was exciting. As the Doctor was on trial. And every story was linked, and it was just like, what's going on? And
yeah, I suppose it'd work better if I hadn't already known, like everyone knows, about the Valiard twists and stuff.
But at the time, you're watching something unfold. So it's when you look back on it and you can go, yeah, it's the wrong thing to do. But actually, at the time when you're watching it, you've no idea what's going to happen next week. Especially in a series where Perry dies. I mean, God, that killed me. I mean, I was in bits. Absolutely distraught over that. And I think, again, the genius of making her bald, so actually disfiguring her in a real sort of permanent way, and then killing her off, was just amazing. And I think there's a lot of really good stuff in Child of Time Lord. I mean, there's a lot of not so good stuff. The Mysterious Planet's maybe not the best Doctor Who story there's ever been. But even that, it's got Joan Sims as a warrior, which is just brilliant. Again, it's what I love about Doctor Who. When people moan about Beryl Reid being miscast in Earthshock, I just think, what do you want? What series do you think you're watching? We're watching, this is Doctor Who, this is what Doctor Who does. It has Beryl Reid in charge of a spaceship. It has Beryl Reid as Sigourney Weaver. It has Joan Sims as a warrior princess. This is why we love Doctor Who.
Brian Blessed in it.
Bonkers. It has Brian Blessed in it. We watch Doctor Who because there is that element of bonkers madness to Doctor Who, which is one of the reasons we love it. We love it because it's not, much as I love other shows, we love it because it's not Star Trek. It's not pretty people in uniforms going around being a bit bland. It's it's bonkers, it's silly, it's ridiculous, and it's a different thing every week. Child of Time Lord has the Oxo-Mum as a judge. You just go, that's brilliant. That's so brilliant, because you're sitting there going, I know who she is. Even as kids, you're like, I know who she is. And she's the judge in Doctor Who. And she's got an amazing hat. And, and all those poor extras as Time Lords who have to keep just turning around and turning back. And God, the bit where the Master appears on the screen. So clearly, although I don't remember it, I must have seen the Master in Mark of the Rani. Is he in anything else? I don't know. It must have been in other stuff. But I clearly remembered the Master because I remember the bit when he turned up in Child of Time Lord, and you just went, "This is amazing! This is like the best twist ever in anything ever." And it's very, again, it's like I say, you can look back on things and go, "It's not very good," or it's it's too long, and that's not what they should have done. But actually, at the time watching it live, there's a lot of brilliant Time Lord. There's a lot of really, really good stuff.
Terror of the Vervoids has got the introduction of Mel in a very different way of doing a companion.
Very different.
Yeah.
They just shove her straight in the story, they don't explain anything.
Yeah.
And there's no way you can really reconcile it with canon by the end of it, but...
It's a bit baffling.
I mean, it's Doctor Who, I mean, you don't really need canon, do you?
Yeah, I think Big Finish have done some audios that sort of... And, well, Gary Russell wrote a book, and then Big Finish have done some audios that give her a good introduction. But again, you know, I loved Mel as a kid. She was the companion in Doctor Who. She was fun, and she was feisty, and, you know, and she went exploring, and... You know, I didn't know who Bonnie Langford was. I didn't care who Bonnie Langford was. I was just like, Doctor Who's got a new friend, and she's really keen to be involved in the adventure. And she's in the best cliffhanger ever, when she screams in tune with the Doctor Who music, while lots of things explode and things come out of pods. I mean, you know, it's that thing. I think Pip and Jane can get a lot of stick, but they kind of do know how to write. You know, even if their dialogue is bonkers, they know what a good cliffhanger is. They know that, you know, they know the basics of Doctor Who, that it should have monsters and it should be scary and funny and an adventure. They do know what they're doing at times.
Now, your next choice is going from a story where the alien invasion is on... The aliens are on a spaceship far away, distant future, to one where the aliens are invading Earth in the past, and it's Remembrance of the Daleks.
Are you threatening me? If so, it is most unwise.
Every time our paths have crossed, I have defeated you.
You flatter yourself, Doctor. In the end, you are merely another Time Lord!
Oh, Davros, I am far more than just another Time Lord.
Remembrance of the Daleks, I remember, again, it's one I remember watching with my family. I would have been 10 or 11 when it went out. And, I mean, I love Season 24. I think Season 24 is so underrated. I think it's so funny. I think Delta and the Bannermen is one of the most joyous Doctor Who stories there has ever been, and I think if you don't like Delta and the Bannermen, there is something wrong with your soul, because it's brilliant. But there is a cheapness to Season 24, and then Season 25 opens with that shot of Earth and those voices of people from the past, and even me, who's not a big history person, even at the time I was there going, these are real voices. Suddenly it was a different show. Suddenly it was, it's not just doing linear storytelling, it's not just A to B, blah, blah. It's opening with a montage type thing, effectively, a montage of voices over Earth in 1963 and their spaceship approaching. But yeah, I think Remembrance of the Daleks is one of the best. Obviously, I'll put it on my list, so I think this, but I genuinely think it's one of the best Doctor Who stories. I think it's an astonishing piece of television. It's one that I remember I had a mate at uni who wanted to watch some more Doctor Who. Pyramids of Mars, he wasn't that interested. Anything else was. I showed him Remembrance of the Daleks, and he was gripped. I showed it to my niece and nephew 2 or 3 years ago, so they would have been, God, he would have been about 4 and she would have been about 6 or 7, and they were gripped by the whole thing, and they watched it with my sister, and my sister didn't know why there were Daleks of different colours, and my nephew explained why there were Daleks of different colours, because he understood the story and she didn't. But then what was brilliant was my nephew couldn't understand the whole Nazi angle, couldn't understand racism, because he was just like, why would people think other people are different? And I just think the story's got so much going for it. And yes, it's got all the, you know, the racism, fascism, and it's all that. There's themes and metaphors and all that lot. But it's just also a bloody good adventure story. And it's so exciting, and it's got a spaceship landing in a school. Again, it's going right back to that unearthly child thing. Obviously, literally, but it is going back to that unearthly child thing of going, Yeti on the Lewin Tooting Beck. Here are aliens landing at your school. Here's a spooky schoolgirl singing a nursery rhyme that you all know. It's just there's so much going for it, and Ace is brilliant, Seventh Doctor's brilliant, and Alison, Rachel, and Gilmore are just fantastic characters, and Mike. There's so many. It's a different show to what it's been for the last few years. Suddenly, there's a real. I don't want to say grown up because I hate that as a description for things, but there's a polish to it. It looks amazing. And I love the music. I know nobody else does, but I love the music. You can sing along to the music. It's brilliant. So yeah, no, I adore it.
Problem with this one is we've discussed it quite a few times before, so just trying to think of new things to say about it.
What do you think of the design of the special weapons Dalek?
Good one. We'll go away and add that one.
As a kid, that was just the most exciting thing ever. I mean, it really was just literally the best thing on television the whole year. It was so exciting because you knew what the Daleks were. And then this thing comes out, and it looks like a tank, and then it blows up a shed load of Daleks, and it's just amazing. It's astonishing. Again, just very clever and very simple, and a writer who's going, let's not just do what Daleks are. Daleks have been. Let's add more to them. Let's do something new with it. And then when Davros comes out as well, you're just going, this is brilliant. And again, probably old fans and things like that were probably going, well, it'll be Davros, or Davros will pop up, and blah, blah, blah. As a kid, I wasn't thinking Davros would pop up. I'd seen Davros before. I didn't know Davros is in that thing.
But even the people who thought Davros would pop up, even the people who thought Davros would pop up, they would have thought he was
in the chair.
In the chair.
Yeah. Time controller activated. Oh, I love that. That's brilliant. But Davros is just terrifying anyway. I mean, Davros is probably the best villain in any show ever because he is terrifying and he looks and sounds terrifying. I am surprised that Davros is allowed on TV in kids show because I just think he's absolutely monstrous. And he was in Remembrance of the Daleks. He turns up and he's this spitting, vile creature. And it's brilliant. Yeah, no, and I do love the Special Weapons Dalek as well.
Is there anything you say about how much you love Davros? You're the first person on the podcast who's actually written for Davros.
Oh yes,
in Terra Firma.
Yeah, for him that's set just after Remembrance of the Daleks of him, which is great because I had an excuse to watch Remembrance of the Daleks. I only needed to watch the last 5 minutes just to see exactly how it ends, but I was like, I'll watch the whole story just in case. He's an amazing character to write for because he is someone you know instantly when you've written a line whether it's right or wrong because you can hear his voice, and you can just go. You can just put Doctor at the end of every line because Terry Malloy is going to go Doctor like that, and you just go brilliant. I know who Davros is. I think he's an amazing character, and it was actually really fun exploring him for Terra Firma for the audio. It was really good, just sort of going. Actually, I want to try and find the sympathetic side to Davros.
So your next choice is another season 25 Sylvester McCoy story, and it's one which hasn't been picked before. It's an interesting choice because it's this obviously Remembrance of the Daleks has parallels with the far right, whereas this one has parallels with the centre right government of the UK. It's the Happiness Patrol.
Candyman, I don't believe you've met my young friend Ace, an expert in calorification, incineration, carbonisation, and inflammation.
Yeah, I literally cannot understand how someone could not like the Happiness Patrol. I think it is absolutely. It sums up Doctor Who. It's what Doctor Who is all about. It's funny and bonkers. It's utterly bonkers. The baddies are women all dressed in pink. You know, you just go, you don't get that in other shows. You don't get that in any other show where everything's so serious or whatever. You get it in Doctor Who. I think it's got some gorgeous dialogue in it, the waiting zone and things like that. I mean, it's very camp, and I do like a bit of camp, so that does appeal. But I also think the Candyman is terrifying. And again, you know, people are sort of...
He's a very underrated monster, isn't he?
Put him?
He's a very underrated monster.
It's totally underrated. It's like, again, it's like what Doctor Who is all about. It's how I love Terror of the Vervoids, because it's basically set on a ferry, which I'd been on. It's like the Candyman is a villain made with sweets. You know, again, this is what Doctor Who is. Doctor Who is about autons, and you know that's when it's at its best, when it's things in our world, and we are scared by things in our world, like statues for Blink and stuff like that. It's like is he sweet? I mean, yeah, he does look a little bit too. So how they thought they'd get away with him looking quite so similar to Bertie Bassett, I don't know. But it's a brilliant performance. But I love the music, and I love the weird Charlie Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, Willy Wonka style to the Candyman's bass with the wheels turning and things like that. And just I think every actor in it is really good. And they're playing real characters. I adore Happiness Patrol, and I think there's something so uniquely Doctor Who about a story that, I mean, like you say, yes, there's all the political thing, and it's a satire and so on. But if you take it at face value, it's a story about a dictator who is insisting everyone is happy, and Doctor and Hayes go, no, nobody should be dictated to. People can be sad if they want. I cannot think of another television series that would have that would do that story. Would go, let's have that as the baddie. The baddie is someone who wants to make people happy. I mean, you just go, there is something brilliantly sort of clever and unique about that. So yeah,
it's one of Sheila Hancock's best performances as well, I think.
Yeah. Oh, she's astonishing in it. I mean, she's a proper villain, and I cry every time she cries over that puppet. That's puppet dog. I cry every time she cries over it, because it's a real. She's human, or whatever they're meant to be human, but she's a real human character, and she's a villain who actually has feelings. And she probably started off with the best of intentions. You know, obviously she is. You know, there are people we can compare her to in the real world. But I think she started off with the best of intentions, and she ended up doing absolutely horrific things. And again, there's just something special about that. Yeah, and she looks amazing in it. She looks so brilliant.
My mum got given her master's degree by Sheila Hancock. She was the I've mentioned this to Will before. I
didn't know that.
Because she was at the time it was at Portsmouth University that my mum got a master's at.
All right.
So because I went to the ceremony, I've actually seen her from a long distance. But
well, I hope your mum said I'm happy you're glad, and you're happy. I imagine Sheila probably would not have been amused.
No.
So have you two seen it? I don't know.
Yeah.
I've seen it absolutely ages ago. I can't really remember much about it.
Yeah, I mean, quite recently.
I'd like to see it more recently, because I mean, when I first saw it, I was like a kid, I didn't know anything about the subtext.
Yeah.
But now I'm into politics. It'd be interesting to.
See, I'm not into politics, but I think it's a story that. I mean, I've always thought with Doctor Who fans, when we become fans, it's because I think every child in the world, or any child who watches Doctor Who, loves Doctor Who. You can't not love Doctor Who when you're a child. And then you reach your early teens, and I think that's when a lot of kids stop being such a big fan of Doctor Who, because it's a bit for kids, and they want to watch the naughty teenage soap that they're not allowed to watch, and I think that happens. And then there's a bunch of us who, when we hit our early teens, we still want to watch the hot teenage soap, but we kind of want to watch Doctor Who as well, because it's something that's clicked in our brains, and I think it's around then that people do it. But I think there is a thing of if if you're of a certain age, I could see why you would think the Happiness Patrol is embarrassing, because you want Doctor Who you want Doctor Who to always look like Pyramids of Mars or Ghost Lights. It should always be in an old stately home and have people being quite posh and historical, because then it's proper television and I don't feel embarrassed about watching it. And then I think you reach another age where you just go, sod it, it should look like the Happiness Patrol. It should be absolutely amazing. And oh God, and the scenes of the people marching are just gorgeous. I think they're absolutely gorgeous scenes. I love it.
Because it'd be interesting to see what it's like knowing a bit more about the politics of it as well. Because I don't necessarily agree with all of the political statements Doctor Who's made in the past.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if that would make me like the story less. I'd like to find out whether.
I think you should give it another go. I think it's
but
also just love it for the brilliance of it, because it's just amazing. And it's it's got an amusement arcade machine. Again, it's sort of going, actually put some real world stuff in it as well. And the Candyman, the Candyman is just terrifying. He's an absolutely terrifying monster. He's sick. He's absolutely sick and twisted, and his voice is brilliant. And he stomps around, and it's brilliant.
Your next choice is another story from the McCoy era. This Light Remembrance has a very though this was the official anniversary special as it were, this Light Remembrance got a very the history of Doctor Who feel to it. And
it's chosen what I think everybody agrees is the best Doctor Who story ever, don't they? It's clearly the most loved Doctor Who story ever.
So, Doctor, a new appearance. Otherwise, our anticipation of your presence has proved entirely accurate.
It is. No, it really is.
Yeah.
This one's going to be probably the most controversial on your list, or one of them anyway, because a lot of people don't like it, and I myself, I don't hate it as much as other people do, but it sort of sits with a lot of Cybermen stories. I don't think the Cybermen are always used to their best on TV anyway. They've had good appearances, but sometimes they're just stock alien really, and they're just ruled out for the name Cybermen. And this one, you've even got them, because at first obviously gold was the weakness. They were supposed to sort of choke on it in their chest units. Now if they're sort of hit by a bit of gold, they blow up and their heads explode. So there's that part about it.
All things will be mine. They surely will. I love it. It's Silver Nemesis, isn't it? Is that what I chose?
Yeah.
I love all that era. It's the era I grew up with, and I adore it. And I was going to choose Curse of Fenric and things, because Curse of Fenric is, I think, one of the best Doctor Who stories ever made. But I thought, I bet no one chooses Silver Nemesis. Nobody likes Silver Nemesis, and it's brilliant.
Probably won't get picked again.
It'll never get picked again. I think Silver Nemesis is so underrated, because again, it's just like Lady Painfort and Richard are two of the best characters ever to have been in Doctor Who. It's very, very funny, and deliberately funny in places. And yes, there's rubbish in it, like the social workers, skinheads, and things. But there's a lot of genuine humour in it, and I think again, it really is that thing that you don't get in any other show, where you get this evil woman from the past and her sort of assistant, and the Cybermen and neo-Nazis in 1980s sort of Argentina, all coming together, and not Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle, and all. And it's so Doctor Who for just having all these mad things thrown together.
Wasn't it originally going to actually have the Queen in it? I'm pretty sure they planned to have the Queen in it.
I think there was going to be someone, wasn't it? Prince Edward. Prince Edward.
I know Prince Charles was supposed to be in Boomtown. I don't know how they would have fit that in.
And it's one of those things where you see people going, that scene's embarrassing. I'm sorry, watch it as a 9 or 10-year-old. You're going, the Queen's in Doctor Who. Doctor Who's just nearly seen the Queen, and he doesn't know who she is, and Ace has pulled him aside with his umbrella. It's like, that's funny. That's genuinely funny. And I'll fight anyone who says it isn't, because it is. It's, I love it. I just think there's a lot of real, and what I love about it as well is the Doctor and Ace, I think, are so gorgeous in it. It's back to that Zoe-Jamie Doctor relationship. There's something about Sylvester and Sophie just sitting there casually, and the fact that Sophie just wears quite normal clothes as well in that story. She's wearing a quite sort of horrible t-shirt that I would have worn at the time. It's them sitting around, and I mean, I hate Jazz with a passion, but they stop the monsters with Jazz at one point, and you just go, you don't get that in Star Trek, you don't get that in Stargate, you don't get that. And
definitely not. They also stop monsters by throwing gold coins at them.
Sorry?
They also stop monsters by throwing gold coins at them and their heads explode.
Exactly. I mean, there's just something. There's a lot of very Doctor Who-y stuff about Silver Nemesis, which I love. And I think it's incredibly underrated. And I have a friend, Davey Darlington, who does sound design. I work with him now for Big Finish. And every once in a while we get together and open a bottle of whiskey and sit down and watch Silver Nemesis and say all the words along with them, and talk about how we want to do our spin-off with Richard and Lady Painfort having other adventures. I think there's a lot of joy in Silver Nemesis, and I think sometimes that's kind of what I want in Doctor Who. I want it to be fun as well as dark and scary and serious and political metaphors or whatever. It's like sometimes actually I just want Doctor Who to be fun, and I think Silver Nemesis is fun. It's a proper big fun adventure. And also I remember that actually the end of part 1, the spaceship landing, the Cybermen coming out, scared the hell out of me as a kid. It was again, it was a proper cliffhanger. So yeah, I love it.
I mean, Silver Nemesis, people say fezzes are cool. You've even got the 7th Doctor wears a fez.
Yeah,
and he picks up a
there's
mop.
something about Sylvester and Sophie. They're so playful together. There's a real natural playfulness to them, and the way they physically interact. They bounce off each other, and they play. You feel that these two people are friends, and they are genuine friends. I love them. I just think the 7th Doctor and Ace are so brilliant, especially in Silver Nemesis, where they are just having fun, where it's not. I mean, it's a bit of the whole, who is he really, Ace angst at the end. But for the most part, they're just having fun together. Open to them just sitting and chilling in a beer garden, and they just look so relaxed and real. I mean, much as I love Mel wasn't real. Perry, I think Nicola Bryant's an amazing actress, and she's real in her first story, but she never dresses like a real person again. And she's in such unreal situations. And there's something about Ace and the 7th Doctor just sitting in a beer garden, reading a paper and having a drink, and listening to jazz, and you sort of go, suddenly, Doctor Who is full of real people again. But, about as real as any of those people can be. But, they feel like people who sit in beer gardens. I don't know if Mel or Perry, you ever see them sat down because they're always running or caught up in strange alien adventures. There's something very nice about seeing them as these real people just sitting and chilling.
Now, speaking of Doctor Who, where the companion and the Doctor sort of seem like real people who just chill, your next choice and your final choice is one where it's your only new series choice, and it's one which I found out recently that people don't like. A lot of people don't. I loved this one.
Stupid.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. It's great, and it's Aliens in London World War III.
Excuse me, do you mind not farting while I'm saving the world?
It's the best Doctor Who story there has ever made in any medium ever. I think it is absolutely 100% the best story ever made. It's got slightly silly monsters, but that are scary for kids. But the adults can sit there and go, well, they're a bit silly. It's got Blue Peter. It's got people watching television. It's got the world's first alien invasion. It's got a spaceship crashing into Big Ben. It's got the pig. Just amazing. And Doctor Who being really upset about the death of a pig. It's got Rose and the Doctor sitting on a roof, going Rose saying nobody will believe in aliens or whatever, no one knows, and then a spaceship coming over, and she's just her going, no, that's not fair. It's got Jackie in, and any television program would be improved by having Jackie in. It's got Mickey sniffing his trainers when they're outside. I love Mickey sniffing his trainers because he's left them out to dry on the balcony. It's got so many beautiful. It's got that woman going, "Someone owes Mickey an apology." It's got so many beautiful moments, and I think it's genuinely absolutely terrifying in places. Even as an adult, I think the unzipping of the heads and the grinning, the strange grin on their faces, and that light coming out. There's something quite scary about it, and it's absolutely sick when you actually think about what the Slovene are. Because you sort of go, the big funny monsters. When you actually think about what they are and what they do to people, it's horrible. It's the most disgusting, sick, monstrous thing anybody's ever done in Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Have I summed up why I like Aliens of London?
They're very a very unique monster when you think about it. Like what you say they do.
I love the Slovene.
They can't really be compared to any other monster the Doctor has produced, really. They're very separate. They don't feel any way connected to anything like, say, you could say maybe the Rastal Warrior robot. Though I love it, it looks visually a bit like a Cyberman.
Isn't it exactly the same prop as the android in Earthshock anyway? So
the same android from Earthshock. With the Slovene, they are very unique in both appearance and the way that they work.
Yeah.
I mean, they're pretty much the big green bug-eyed monsters they didn't want to have in Doctor Who at the start.
Yeah.
But they don't just go around, killing people. You actually see that they've got a culture, they've got a family.
Yeah.
They're not an alien race, they're a family. They're criminals. They're very intelligent, but they have the hunt. I think they're amazing, and the fact they hide within humans, that anyone could be one, and then you just,
especially if you.
only Doctor Who can ever make farting.
Yeah, I
scary.
I wonder how many
literally
the next day at school were in.
We're like, oh crap,
chasing them, going.
Can we just lift up your fringe there? In case you got a big zip.
But yeah, no, I think they're just big, scary monsters, and a bit like the Vervoids. The way the Vervoids stuck with me, even though you look at the Vervoids now and go, they don't look very good. And in fact, you look at the Slovene and go, obviously, there have been much scarier, much more realistic monsters in New Doctor Who, but there's something so reassuring about a big, stompy monster. And that's what the Slovene are. But like you say, they've got so much else going for them. But they are just big. They're also big, scary monsters. No, I think this. I just love. I love the whole look of the story. I love the direction. I love the music.
It's a political thriller, isn't it? Really.
Pardon?
It's kind of a political thriller. It's all within Downing Street.
It's really colourful, which I really
the
like.
parody of the.
Very sort of. It's not going, let's be dark and mysterious. It's going, this is the real world. So these people are wearing really colourful clothes. Rose is all colourful. Jackie's all colourful. They're wearing really colourful clothes. And Jackie and Mickey get to go in the TARDIS. And I love how Mickey's changed since Rose in the gap of, 2 stories. He's now going, well, I've looked you up on the internet and I've done this and I've done that. And he knows so much more that's going on. And then Jackie phoning up because Rose has been in the TARDIS, she's seen the TARDIS and seen the world her daughter's involved in. I just adore the whole Rose Jackie mixed storyline of the being left behind, of the trying to live a normal life and being caught up in the stories, and then it culminating in Jackie stealing a truck or borrowing a truck to break the TARDIS open. At the end of series 1, so that Rose can go back to the future. So Jackie, I love Jackie's journey in Doctor Who, and I think Aliens of London is obviously it's a big part of that. I think it's absolutely brilliant.
I mean, you've even got people sort of. There's so many good things about the story. You sort of forget. You got Harriet Jones, who's amazing.
Harriet Jones, who's.
I think that character wasn't used so well in her later appearances, but I think she worked a lot better in this one than later on.
She's lovely.
But
she's
exactly
caught up in the adventure, and
If you're just like a backbench MP,
Yeah.
and it's sort of there's a lot of like in the news like MPs are evil, and they are just normal people. A lot of them. I mean, not all of them.
It's a bit like I suppose it is a bit like I should never thought of that, but it's a bit like the Ian and Barbara being teachers thing. It's kids watching that are going, oh, some MPs might not be evil, and actually MPs who are normally boring because they're just boring men in suits. Actually, some of them are maybe quite funny. We don't know. You know, again,
they're just normal people.
Harriet as this very lovable character, and so funny. And Penelope Wilton, I mean, is just amazing. You know, she's a fun character, and it's great. I want to watch it now.
I mean, I've never understood why people don't like this. This is.
I don't know. I think we there's so much good stuff in that first year, but I think there's an element of, you know, Dalek is amazing, and Unquiet Dead. The Unquiet Dead is beautiful.
Well, that was the first season. Yeah. That's when I came into Doctor Who.
What, Unquiet Dead?
No, well, not the Unquiet Dead, but in Dalek, but in the first season, and you know, I loved it, and I went back to watch the earlier ones. You know, the first few that I'd missed.
Yeah.
And then I was hooked.
No, I think there's a lot of, you know, and obviously the Empty Child and things like that. But I think, you know, there's something very fan pleasing about things like the Empty Child and Dalek and so on. They're, you know, not to detract from them in any way, shape, or form. I think they're absolutely amazing. There isn't a story in that first year of the new series I don't like. I think that first year of Doctor Who, new series Doctor Who, is brilliant in every episode. But, you know, I think there's an element of... I think sometimes adult Doctor Who fans, you know, like me, are worried about how people see Doctor Who, and they like it when Doctor Who looks like the Empty Child. They like it when it's in a period, historical period, so everybody's dressed nicely, the locations look lovely, the sets are lovely, it's quite... There's an element of seriousness to it. It's a proper drama. I think they maybe struggle slightly with Aliens of London. Because it's got big farting aliens.
I mean, the criticism is of this one that it's childish, but it's really not. It's got the farting aliens for kids to sort of go, it's funny. Look, farting's funny, but the fact that's not everything in the story. If you're judging it just on that, then you need to watch it again, because there's so much else. You've got the political intrigue, you've got the satire of the invasion of Iraq, even.
Yeah, but also
which
the big thing for me is that
goes on deeper levels.
Variety, and I think that's what you get in that first year Doctor Who so well of the new series, is the variety. So you don't want Dalek every week. You don't want the Empty Child every week. You want that variety. So you need that variety. You need that. Some stories are sillier than others. Some stories are more childish than others. Some stories are alien, historical. You know, you need that variety, because that's what Doctor Who is. That's when it's at its best, when it's a completely different story each week. And so you need the Aliens of London. You need the fun, slightly silly adventures to contrast with the darker storylines in other episodes. Otherwise, I don't think kids would watch it. Brilliant brilliant, absolutely astonishing though Dalek and Empty Child are. I think if the entire series was like that, kids wouldn't watch it. And I think families would watch it, because I think it would become too dark. You need the lighter episodes.
Exactly. I always think
they look lighter. They're set at day, you know, and things like that.
I always think the lighter episodes are fun. I mean, I like the dark ones as well.
Yeah.
I just like Doctor Who, really. It just works so well, like, because I suppose it says what people like about Doctor Who is that there is something for everyone.
Yeah.
Unless you're a bit mad and you don't like any of it. But
stupid.
But there's always if you like darker stories and dark alien invasions. I mean, my dad, he doesn't particularly like it when they go back in time.
Yeah.
But I mean,
my mum doesn't like Midnight.
What?
My mum doesn't like.
No, I've got a friend who doesn't like Midnight.
I don't understand. I mean, my mum's really cool, and she's sorted, and she's not brain dead or anything. But she went, oh, I didn't like last week's. I think I was visiting them not long after that, and she went, oh, I didn't like last week's Doctor Who, but it was just people talking on the train. And I was like, what the hell is wrong with you? You know, how could you not think Midnight wasn't the best thing on television that year? You know, but that's the thing. You can't. Not everybody is the same. Not everybody is going to like the same thing, and that's what the joy of Doctor Who is that you might not like one story, but then the next story could be the best thing in the world ever. And chances are, even if you don't like a story, there's still brilliance in it because it's the best show on telly. I read it very, very recently, and I just thought, you know, oh God, do we need another version of Sharda? You know, for an unmade story. I think we've all seen and heard so many versions of Sharda. Do we really need another version? And then I started reading that book and went, yes, we do, because this is brilliant. It's just, I mean, Gareth, he's a mate, so I hope he doesn't listen to this, because you don't want to say too much nice things about your mates. But he is brilliant. He is such a funny writer. And I think also much more, although I think everybody sees him as a funny writer, he also is a really there's a real heart to his writing. He really manages to write characters that have a real heart to them, the real emotions and things. And I think he did that in all his Sarah Janes, and certainly in the Sharda novelisation thing. I mean, it's not even a novelisation, it's a book, it's a proper book. Yeah. And I think it must have been, I know it was hard work for him, but I just think the end result is just a brilliant book. It's gorgeous. It's just absolutely gorgeous, and it doesn't feel like someone novelising someone else's unfinished Doctor Who story and things like that. It doesn't feel like that. It feels fresh. It feels like a proper novel that you could just sit down and read and not know anything about Sharda and its history. It's just gorgeous. It's lovely.
I've always enjoyed the Sharda novelisation because it's definitely in the voice of Douglas Adams, but it doesn't feel like a just a straight copy, does it?
No, exactly, and it also feels like it's in Gareth's voice as well. And I think it works so well. It doesn't. That's what
because you do feel like you're reading like something like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah,
but you don't feel like this is trying to sound like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah, it just feels. I think it's a bit like less about Terence and the Five Doctors, you know, where it just feels deceptively easy. And actually, you sort of think of the technical skill that's gone into writing the Five Doctors is beyond most of our comprehension. You know, the Five Doctors looks like the simplest story in the world, but the actual technical skill that's gone into making that as perfect and as simple as it seems. And I think it's a bit like that with the Sharda novelisation. I think to turn that strange thing of this finished script, but it wasn't finished as a TV show, then it was an audio webcast thing, and
I did see the webcast audio as well.
But also, you don't want Gareth Roberts writing a book not in his voice, and to combine his voice with Douglas Adams, you know, and to use both. I just think it's a brilliant. It's a book I would just give anybody to read. You know, you're not a Doctor Who fan, I don't care. Give this a go. It's a proper novel. I love Claire and the bloke, whatever he's called in it. For the whatever he's called.
I mean, when I read the book, I imagined them as when I saw the webcast, because I did see the webcast, and I thought so I was sort of a bit biased towards that, at first it was hard to even imagine Tom Baker in it because I was just used to McGann in it, but I got into it pretty quickly and just imagining his booming voice.
Exactly, but then I think, like I say, you don't need to know who Tom Baker is. You don't need to have seen an episode of Doctor Who. It doesn't even, exactly. Book. It's proper. It's a proper book.
It doesn't, because I mean, it's like what Stephen Moffat said about the Doctor's just the Doctor.
Yeah,
he's not like the. You don't write for the first Doctor well, maybe for the first Doctor, but I mean, you don't write for like the fourth Doctor or the eighth or the 11th or Capaldi's 12th or whatever number he is now. Now he's all confused. But it's just the Doctor. It's just, they've each got their little quirks, but overall, deep that's the same guy.
Yeah, and I think that comes across really in the Shada book. It doesn't feel like you need to have seen Tom Baker on television and got his voice and understood that. It feels like this is a new character. It's a fresh new character called the Doctor with his companion Romana. I don't know who Romana is. I don't know what she looks like. I don't know who's played her. I don't know if she's been on television. She's a character in a book, and I think that's what the great thing about that Shada novelisation is. It feels like a standalone book that's not part of a series.
Yeah, you could give it to anyone.
Yeah, I think it works so brilliantly. And also, it made me cry. Again, it made me cry. It's the bit where the not the hitchhiker, because the baddie's the hitchhiker, but the guy whose car he gets into, and Gareth has just made him into a little character, and
yeah, that was great. I love that bit.
And the character survives at the end. Sorry, spoiler, but it is a spoiler, but I don't care. That character is dead. That character gets killed off, like he does in the TV series, pretty killed off. And then Garth brings him back at the end, and it's gorgeous. And it was real. It made me cry when I read it. I was just like, that is beautiful. And to do that, I think that's, again, I think that's where Gareth is such a good writer. It's because it's so deceptively simple. And yeah, that isn't simple. That's there's real work that goes into that.
It might be even better that it wasn't completed, because in this way you can imagine your own thing, which would be a lot better than what they could have made on their small budget with at the time of strikes.
And it's quite nice. It's quite nice to have that sort of
that mythos,
that story of Shada, that the story that was never completed. It's quite a nice little Doctor Who sort of fictional story. It's nice to have a story about Doctor Who that is about this unfinished story that was never made, and then it was used in the Five Doctors, and then there was the webcast, and then there was a novelisation. It's quite nice to have a nice fun thing.
So, your audio that you've chosen, your other choice, it's not one you've written. You could have chosen one you've written, but that would be kind of... You could have if you wanted to, but it would have been...
The best Doctor Who audio ever written is The Rapture by a writer called Joseph Lidster, and I think everyone...
it might seem a bit...
Yeah, no. I didn't think it.
Odd. So you haven't chosen that. You instead have chosen Chimes of Midnight.
It's just beautiful. It's Rob Sherman is clearly an amazing writer. Again, he's a mate of mine, so it's a little bit to sort of say nice things about mates. I just think it's a story it's so clever, and everybody talks about the black humour and all that lot. But again, it's going back to like what's about Gareth and Shada, and I think the Gene and Russell with Aliens of London. To me, it's when people are human and you care about them. And Chimes of Midnight, I listen to it usually every couple of years. I'll listen to it once every couple of years, and I am always sitting there going, this is so funny, this is so clever, and then suddenly I am crying my eyes out because it's utterly beautiful, so well acted and directed, and the music and everything. But it all comes down to the script. The script it's just an astonishing piece of work. And yeah, if there are people listening to this, as I imagine there are, who don't listen to Big Finish and things like that, it doesn't matter if you don't listen to Big Finish. Buy Chimes of Midnight, because it is one of the greatest Doctor Who stories ever made, ever. And it's not even one of the greatest Doctor Who stories. It's one of the greatest pieces of fiction. I think it's an absolutely beautiful piece of drama. That also remembers to be funny and scary. That tricky balance in Doctor Who of you've got to be funny, you've got to be dark, you've got to be scary, you've got to do all this. But ideally as well, if you can make you can have emotion, an emotional truth to it, then you get the joy of it. And I think Chimes of Midnight is the perfect story for that. And got Paul McGann and India Fisher are astonishing in it, as is the whole cast. So yeah, have you two heard it? I don't know this.
Yeah, I heard it on BBC Radio 7. I think it's years ago when it was on BBC Radio 7, which is now 4 Extra. It really is a very enthralling story. I can remember, I think it was on in November-ish, and it really suits a sort of a Christmassy, November-y feel to it.
No, it does, and it's again, it's something that everybody involved on every level is so good at doing, is creating that atmosphere, from the script to the actors to the production design of it. They create that atmosphere and it just works so well. And I think it's such a clever. It's clever and funny and dark, but what it actually boils down to is this real human emotion, and it's just beautiful. It's a gorgeous thing.
I've not heard it. I've seen it. There's only one Big Finish I've actually heard all the way through, and that was only like a couple of weeks ago.
We've got like
I've got exactly. Because I've sort of focused on there's loads of TV episodes that I haven't seen, so there's
I haven't seen all the TV stuff. No,
I thought, maybe I should catch on the TV stuff, but the Big Finish had their sale, didn't they, recently? I got one from each of their. I got Spare Parts, Jubilee, Dust Breeding, and Storm Warning.
Right.
Each for £4 for all of them, and I thought that was just really good. I couldn't really turn it down. I had a chance to get into it.
Good ones there.
And
I like those.
I've already listened to Spare Parts, and I've started Jubilee. I've got The Light at the End as well, which I listened to the first part of ages ago and never got round to listening to the rest, which I need to. Because I always do that with Big Finish. Well, unless I all listen to it all in one go, I'll just forget to do it, which is really annoying. Because it's not as if I don't like it or anything. It's just that I think I'll just never find the time to actually listen to it. But I do need to get round to listening to more.
Yeah, no, there's some amazing stuff there. You've got a lot of good catching up to do, which is good. I'm quite jealous of you. You've got a lot of stories to hear. But it's like say about Child of the Time Lord and things like that. Don't read reviews. Don't see what people have said about it and all that lot. Just experience the story as it's meant to be experienced, which is with no prior knowledge. And you've got so many to enjoy just coming from that viewpoint of not knowing anything about it. You got to put a CD on and you've got some good stuff to come.
So I think that just about wraps it up. I think we just come out to the end.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So thank you for being our guest, Joe.
It's all right. Thank you for having me.
So have you got any writing things planned?
I'm doing a few things at the moment. Doing a couple of new kids TV shows, which are very different from each other, which are very good. It's been quite a fun year for that. I've done something Doctor Who related, which I can't talk about yet, but I'm very excited about. That's been a brilliant job. The next big thing I'm doing is a mini-series for Big Finish called Dark Shadows Bloodlust, which I've co-written and co-produced, and we're going into studio in the next couple of weeks. And basically Dark Shadows is this series we've been doing anyway, but this is like a sort of a mini-series, standalone mini-series, and it's basically us doing Twin Peaks and The Killing and Lucy Beale murder in EastEnders. It's us doing a big old murder mystery, but with vampires and ghosts and werewolves. So it's perfect. It's right up my street. I'm really excited about that. I think that's been really good fun. And it's available to pre-order now for a very, very cheap price. Which I can't remember what it was because I should have done the research. I think it's about £20. You can download. You can get all 13 episodes as a download when they come out. I think that's going to be something very exciting. I'm very happy with that. Other than that, just I've read a couple of short plays and had a few things gone, but just always looking for the next thing.
So thank you everyone for listening. I've been Conrad, with me has been Will and Joe Lidster, and we won't see you, but you will hear us in the next episode. Goodbye.
Goodbye.